Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I'm doing reading for Sun of Capricorn. Keep in mind that this does not resonate for every Capricorn. If you'd like a personal reading, that's going to be the first link in the description down below. Repeat that, first link in the description down below for a personal reading. You can also find a bunch of other things in there in the description. You can find my Etsy shop, which has my tarot and my oracle cards on there, holographic stickers, as well as a mini holographic version of my oracle cards, my pins, which are acrylic pins. We have the White Raven pin, Green Man pin, Serapis Bay pin. All that's in the description down below. On my Etsy shop, you can also find my shirt store, my website, different social media platforms I'm on, as well as Patreon. All that's in the description down below. And if you'd like to donate to the channel, feel free to do so. I do appreciate donations here. Now, Capricorn, I just got this deck, so we're going to be doing a lot of reading with it, okay? But let's see what Spirit has in store for yourself. So we have number 7, Capricorn, number 8, number 7 once again, number 5, and then we have number 2, number 6, 1, and number 8. We have numbers 8s and 7s of significance here. Okay, so let me try find these in this book here. Find one of these. Let's found one. Right here. So it says, from Tehu, the oldest name for the ibis bird, one of the most powerful gods worshipped throughout Egypt was Tehuti, or Thoth, master of divine words and sacred writing. So we have Thoth here with you, Capricorn. His main center was the city of Hermopolis, where he was the head of the company of the 8 primordials in ancient times. He was also in the other company of gods, including Memphis and Thebes, and his presence was described in all of the main myths passed down through dynasties. Thoth is another netter not born from any god. He was said to have emerged from the watery abyss of Nu along with Mat, his female counterpart in Ra. He is a cosmic principle that meditates between the worlds, and being the heart and tongue of Ra, it was a medium through which the will of Ra was expressed. In ancient myths, it is Thoth who speaks the words of power to carry out Ra's wishes. It is Thoth who gives Aset the magical words that revive the dead, Asur, so she might conceive Heru and revive Heru after he is fatally stung by a scorpion. Above all, Thoth is divine intelligence, universal mind with all of its powers of speech and creation. As scribe of gods, or in particular, the scribe of Mat, Thoth formulates all the words of creation and records them in the Akasha, or universal memory. But his word only has a power when he is together with Mat, who is the cosmic law, which is the same as saying, "And the mind is centered in the heart," where Mat is a cosmic principle and detached from human affairs. Thoth is intimately connected with life and death, every individual, and he teaches the knowledge of magic, indispensable for the soul's safe passage throughout Duat. He also arbitrates between Heru and Seth in their struggle for supremacy, understanding the necessary for both principles and keeping these forces in the exact equilibrium of Mat. He is the mediator par excellence between humans and the netters, in the same way the moon is the mediator between the earth and the cosmos, reflecting the light and energy of the sun onto the earth and maintaining a perfect balance in ebb and flow of all water and fluids. In Judgment Scene from the Book of the Dead, Thoth takes the form of a dog-headed ape who sits on the center of the balance scales, where the heart of the dead is being weighed, and he tells the heart balances the feather of Mat. And here in Duat he is found not only recording the deeds or words of the deceased, he also decides whether the heart has been balanced and whether the soul passes into paradise. He was widely invoked so that he might give the words of power up to the souls of the dead so they could pass safely through Amenta, banishing demons while armed with the names of monsters in the formula that transformed the demons into allies. The Book of the Dead was said to have been written by Thoth, the patron of writing, and his other writings were kept in inner temple sanctuaries, written on papyrus scrolls, and only accessible to the highest initiates in royalty. These books contain the myths and occult rituals of an ancient magic, with writings on astronomy, geometry, and human and divine law. Through the Greeks associating with Thoth, with their god Hermes. These books became known as the Hermetic books, and gradually the sacred science of Thoth filtered through the ages, distorted by time to become the Hermetic science. As the lord of all knowledge and understanding, Thoth was the inventor and god of all arts and science. His knowledge, let me mark this down because I'm going to read this later too, like that. His knowledge and powers of calculation measured out the heavens and planned the earth and everything which is in them. His will and power kept the forces in heaven and earth in equilibrium. It was his great skill in celestial mathematics which made proper use of the laws, upon which the foundation and maintenance rested. It was he who directed the motions of the heavenly bodies in their times and seasons, and without his words, the gods whose existence depended upon them could not have kept their place among the followers of Ra. While the primordial power of creation originates from the principle, it needs to be spoken in order to manifest form. As the power of creating through speech and writing, Thoth was the principle beneath all knowledge, all science. He is said to have existed as a human way back in the earliest Egyptian days, a being of another order who, along Osset and Osor, brought his knowledge from other worlds to the human race. As a living netter, he established a common language, invented the alphabet, and established the worship of the gods in temples built by Osor. He gave humans the first principles of astronomy, music, and medicine, was the author of all books concerning human and divine knowledge. The sacred science of Thoth was above all the occult science of transmutation, and the elements of which the hermetic art of alchemy was only an echo in medieval days. One of Thoth's titles was the Thrice Great, later becoming Hermes, some word I can't pronounce, and the Emerald. He sits in front of represents the hermetic tablet on which the knowledge of Thoth was written. The emerald has a particular affinity with the mind and acts as a link which knowledge from higher levels of consciousness can be filtered into the human mind. He wears a crown representing the three kingdoms above a pair of ram's horns. The divine knowledge is said to be divided into 4 parts, but man or woman, while living, can only have 3 of these parts, and Thoth is the one who gives the knowledge. To obtain that 4th part, the human must first transcend the limitations of the world of form and indeed become the god. The ibis bird whose head Thoth wears and from which his name is derived symbolizes the heart, the center of the mind and intelligence of Thoth. The curved shape of the ibis beak also emphasizes Thoth's lunar nature, and he is sometimes referred to as the black eye of Hera, or the moon, which he is established in its orbit around the earth. The other animal most closely associated with Thoth, as we have already noted, is the dog-headed ape, who also represents the waning moon, and is often shown wearing the lunar crescent in disk. This animal was regarded as having strong affinities with primal energies emerging in the dark 4th night of the moon. In connection with these lunar phases, we find that Ra, whose light the moon reflects, possessed 7 souls and 14 doubles, and the 14 Ka of Ra were given him by Thoth. One image shows Thoth standing by the side of a lotus pillar that supports heaven, and resting on heaven is a crescent containing the... There's some words I don't know how to pronounce. Leading up to the top of the pillar is a flight of steps unequal length, which are intended to represent the first 14 days of the month. At the foot stand 14 netters, the first of these being Autumn, who has his right foot resting on the first step, the shortest step. His foot signifies the act of stepping through a potent symbol of initiation into Egypt mysteries. These steps leading upward are each assigned their particular deity. Each is an initiation into the lunar powers, taking the aspiration through a process of inner enlightenment corresponding to the waxing of the moon, and ascending to culminate in the full moon indicated by the Egyptians by the Uchat of Thoth as the Uchat of Ra. Represents the midday sun. The full moon is the left eye open to illuminate the darkness of the night, to reveal a higher knowledge which includes perception of Pet, the spiritual world. As a form of the moon, Thoth is also related to Saturn because of the number 28, which is the number of days for a lunar cycle and the number of years it takes Saturn to orbit the sun. As the moon rules the waxing and waning powers of growth and fertility, Saturn fixes the pattern of its 7-year cycle, the immutable patterns of birth, growth, maturity, and death. You know, Capricorn, I think one of the reasons why you have this god here with you, because isn't your ruling planet Saturn? I'm pretty sure one of them there. Divinatory meaning, success in writing, literature, science, occult knowledge, meditation. So you have Thoth here with you. I gave the explanation of Thoth right there. Okay. Could be something with writing here as well that you're being helped with. Literature, science, knowledge. It can also be that of meditation there, Capricorn. Now, this is going to be a long video. Okay, let's see if we can find these other ones. That one is not there. That one's also not there. There's that one. Wait, we don't have 3. 4. We have 4, and I don't think we have 4. That's not 5 that we had. I found another one. So we have Moftet. She who sees clearly. Okay, Capricorn. As Mat represents cosmic law and the sacred order of the universe, so Matfet personifies law on earth. The judicial authorities who try and judge the defendant and who exact punishment when the individual is found guilty of a crime. She too is found in scenes of the Judgment Hall. The animal associated with Maftet is the lynx, an animal of the cat family, recognized by its tufted ears. The meaning of Maftet's name derives from the cat's well-known ability to see in the dark. In this card, a lynx is shown running up the execution pole behind the figure of the goddess. This pole, which is curved at the top with the projecting blade, which has struck fear into the hearts of evildoers, it's also called Maftet. The background is a vivid blood red. Although merciless to the wicked, the lynx Maftet was a friend of the dead in Amanta, warding off the attacks of serpents who would try to destroy them. In the Book of the Dead, she helps Serket and Mot overthrow Apep in Duat. And the double-hafted spear of Heru in his battle against Apep is likened to her sharp claws. Here, she is shown raising a sword to execute 2 prisoners who, like Apep, have been bound with fetters by the goddess Serquet. Divinatory meaning justice, punishment, paying for some wrong done, and imposed discipline of an earthy or spiritual nature. Okay, so we have some sort of justice here, Capricorn, by this goddess. We have something that the divine is seeing here, and they're placing judgment, they're placing justice on someone who has done wrong, or some people there have done wrong, Capricorn. Okay, so let's try and find these other cards, because this book is like, it's kind of like, yeah, look, we found another one. Okay, so we have this right here. We have Jeb, or Geb, whichever one. Geb is the netter of the earth. He is a planet Earth, and in this there is a reversal, in that many other traditions, the earth is considered female. The surface of the planet and the earth beneath are the flesh of Geb, and all the trees and plants and vegetation are a part of him, bearing food for his descendants, the human race. The name Geb is derived from the name of goose, the bird with which he is always associated. This netter is usually shown as human wearing the white crown of the south. It is often accompanied by a goose, for this bird plays a special role in the story of the Earth's formation. In the form of a goose, Geb went into the primeval hills, formed from the formless chaos, and there, standing alone, he laid an egg. From this egg the sun emerged. The power of Ra, the Syrian energy, was born through Ra, as though the sun were a child of the earth. The 4 geese in this card refer to the number of the earth in materialization. In many illustrations, Geb is shown being torn from his embrace with Nut, goddess of space, by Shu, the air. As Geb falls from the starry body of Nut, he rolls into a ball, which becomes planet Earth. In their myths and symbols, the ancient Egyptians described the formation of the solar system as the transmission of stellar energies that manifested as the earth, the sky, the sun. The principles behind the elements are personified. Like Shu in autumn, before him, Geb becomes the father of the gods, the sacred fire of life, the creative energy which streaming through autumn divides into 2 aspects in Shu and Tefnut and becomes incorporated into the earth as Geb. The worship of Geb is pre-dynastic, and he was worshipped as the tribal chief of the company of the gods at Heliopolis, where the work of creation began. It was through Geb's union with Nut that Asur, Astet, Nebtet, Heru, and Seth were brought into being to complete the family of the sun. After Geb's separation, he was forced to live independently of her as the earth solidified in space, but he is always reaching up to the sky. His erect phallus is perpetually seeking his lover. This phallic symbolism, common to the Egyptians and to all ancient colors, represented not only the power of procreation, but also the transmission and reception of far more subtle energies, in Geb's case, attracting and absorbing the stellar energies from the body. Egyptian obelisks were precise tools for this transmission and reception of cosmic energies, constructed in phallic form and often crowned by the solar disk. Geb represents the total devotion to Nut. Separated from her, he is like the Chinese royal goose, a symbol of fidelity, of which it was believed that if its mate dies, the goose remains alone rather than finding another. The egg that Geb lays in primordial hills is an interesting symbol that reoccurs through all the myths of creation. The shell of the egg is likened to the earth's crust, the element that protects the germinating life, while inside is the ferment, where the fire of life quickens, multiplying rapidly to create new form. Geb is colored green, which represents not only the color of the Earth's vegetation, but also the grayish green that appears in decomposition and mold. The egg has to die, like the sun each day, and be born again in a new form of life. A greater birth is preceded by a greater death. The souls of the dead beg Geb to open their jaws and their eyes, to loosen their legs, which are bound together. They seek their spiritual release from the body of matter, from the earth. They are also made to say, in the Book of the Dead, I keep watch over the egg of the great cackler. I I live as it liveth, and my breath as its breath. They identify with the egg about to crack open to release the new sun and new energy of Sirius. The sun god is born from the egg in the form of the Bennu bird, the original phoenix, being the soul of Ra in his continuous changing phases. This freedom of spirit is expressed vividly by Nut, who exclaims, "The doors of heaven are open for me, the doors of earth are open for me, the bars and the bolts of Geb are open for me." Loyalty, materialization of one's plans, nourishment, and connection with the earth's energy. Look at this. So this is another thing that you're connecting with here. Capricorn. There's some sort of loyalty here. I feel like there's like a loyal, like, okay, I can put this a couple ways. First off, it feels like you were being that of loyal to spirit, to these gods here, right? You form some sort of loyalty with these Egyptian gods, right? And now, connecting with them, there's some sort of justice going around as well. What I also feel like is if like you are like extremely loyal to a person and you didn't really get that back, there's justice, right, Capricorn? Now we found another one right next to it. Thank God I don't have to search forever for it. So we have this one right here. Sobek, he who reunites also to make pregnant. Oh my goodness, Capricorn. The Crocodile God, Sobek, is one of the pre-dynastic gods of Egypt, a very ancient netter and chief deity of the city called Crocodile Polis. Of all the animals found in Egypt, the crocodile was among the most feared. In the dry season, when the water disappeared from the irrigation canals and streams, the crocodiles moved into the fields in search of food and were liable to kill anyone or anything in their path. So it's not surprising that Sobek was regarded as one of Seth's henchmen in a personification of darkness and death. Under Osirian dynasties, the crocodile transformed into an image of evil and a symbol of Seth to be trampled underfoot. Sobek was worshipped devoutly in certain areas of land. However, in tame crocodiles were kept by priests decorated with jewelry and supplied with offerings of food from their faithful followers. The destructive power of Sobek was seen to be a necessary element in the process of transformation. The primeval power he personified was destructive only to those who enmeshed in the material trappings of the external world. Fearful deities have always been employed to guard the inner teachings of the sacred sciences. They represent our own fears and destructive energies protected in an outward form. The primeval power Sobek embodied was a link with extra-human realms, the reptilian consciousness, and the mud and slime of human beings. By the 4th dynasty, however, Sobek assumed the form of a ram-headed crocodile, was not only identified with Seth, but also with Ra as a form of the sun god. When the vernal equinox entered the sign of the ram, as Drought Nancy writes, Osiris was the great god of the dynasty of the celestial bull, who was succeeded by the ram-headed Amon of one cult and Sobek of the other. The introduction of Sobek as the ram-headed Ra implies a religious revolution. He was thought to unite the elements separated by Seth and to restore life to elements dispersed by death. It may be that his powers of bringing together separated parts was a reflection of Neith, the weaver goddess, who was his mother. In the Book of the Dead, he helped in the rebirth of Heru and assisted the dead by giving them sight, by opening the doors of heaven and leading them along treacherous byways, so, like Heru, may be born into new life. He's depicted here in human form with a crocodile head crowned with the horns and solar disk around which 2 uri rear. Above the solar disk are 2 green feathers, which are Sobek's special signature. He holds the Ankh of life in his right hand and the scepter of prosperity in his left. In Greco-Roman times, Sobek was equated with the planet of Mercury, and in this aspect his color is green, representing the mind. In Egyptian zodiac, the crocodile is in the sign of Scorpio. Divinatory meaning: ferocity, destructive energies that, if unchecked, could bring about Corin's downfall and ally material power. Okay, Capricorn. So, another thing that you're connecting with here, but I feel like that's part of this justice here, right? There's something here that you've awakened where there's justice, but you gotta be careful because it could be a little bit too destructive here at times, right? Here, Capricorn. But I feel like I also feel like here, oh yeah, Capricorn, if you keep seeing Scorpio up here and you're reading that can be this right here. Okay, I want to point that out. It's not every time. Okay, yeah, there can be people in your reading, but a lot of times that could be spirits. Okay, you got to pay attention because each spirit can be assigned to like a different major arcana and that of like a king or a queen. Okay, you just got to pay attention to which one pops out under like which. Okay, Capricorn. But I feel like this is. Yes, it can be that of destructive Capricorn, but it's also an ally, right? There's also heaven being opened up here, Capricorn. There's also new life. There's also talk of like fertility, pregnancies, Capricorn, rebirths. We don't have that card. I don't think we have number 4. What do we have? Makes me confirm. We don't have number 5 because we already read that. We have number 6. Right here. Another animal whose cult was very ancient in Egypt was the lion. And many temples devoted to the solar principle kept sacred lions in special compounds. Because of this animal's strength and the terror it could invoke, statues of lions were placed at the funeral doors in tombs to guard the living and the dead. And funeral biers were often made in lion form to represent the sun god. The death of body was identified with the setting sun, and its rebirth was likened to the sun rising anew in the morning. In early times, lions were plentiful in the delta and hunted across the deserts. In Upper Egypt, Akuru is one of the oldest known lion gods and was originally depicted with one body bearing 2 heads facing opposite directions. Later he was separated and given 2 bodies, one facing the west where the sun sets and begins its journey into the Duat, and one facing the east where the sun emerges every morning from the darkness. The mouth of each lion formed the entrance and exit to this passage through the earth where the sun journeyed. When the entrance to the Duat was opened, it was said the gates of Akuru were opened onto you. In this connection with the earth, Akuru was linked with the earth god, Geb, which we just read about, Capricorn. So these are these doors being opened to you. These are these gods here opening these doors here. Doors of heaven, doors of earth, doors of, you know what I'm saying, Capricorn? In ancient myths, the pharaoh obtained the power of all gods by hunting and killing them and ritually eating their flesh. Akuru was one of the gods who helped in this ritual slaughter, and in form of the Sphinx, he paradoxically protects not only the king but also the gods, which he kills so their essence can be absorbed into the body of the pharaoh. In this card, the Sphinx gazes out, ignitingly, between the twin forms of Akuru. Standing between the past and the future, he represents the eternal present, a symbol of the alchemical transformation which produces the substance that can turn all matter into gold, and which liberates the spirit from its earthly body. Akuru is the past and the future, yesterday and tomorrow. He is the continuity of time, the memory of all cycles that have turned and will return until consciousness is no longer bound by limitations of time. Divinatory meaning: a journey, remembering the past in order to know how to act in the present. Unconscious memories surfacing, the continuity of time. Okay, Capricorn, this is another thing that you're connecting with here. These sphinxes, these lions here, the Kuru. Okay? The earth, all this right here, Capricorn. But look at this, you are going on this journey here. Okay, I feel like it's a spiritual journey. I feel like that's something you're devoted here, Capricorn. Alright? And I feel like you're being quite heavily protected here. There's justice here. You have these forces here with you, Capricorn. Okay, but there's like remembering the past. Okay? Because there's something coming in the future. I found another one. Okay? We have Setet from Sat, to shoot, eject, pour out. Setet, the female counterpart of Khnemu, is worshipped from the earliest dynasties in Abu, or the city of El Infantine, situated on the river Nile, like Khnemu. She sometimes wears ram's horns, representing a solar principle, but here she wears the white crown of the south surmounted by the cow's horns that identify her with the goddess Het-Hert and Osset. This identification with Osset is further emphasized by Setet's connection with Sirius, for Setet was the goddess of the yearly flooding of the Nile. Inundation, routed by Sirius rising in the northern skies. Through her connection, the star energies with the rising of the Nile at the right time, she is associated with the number 7. Lucky number 7, Capricorn. As a goddess of fertility, Satet pours out the life-giving waters to revitalize the dried, parched lands, beginning the yearly cycle of growth. In the sky above, her upraised sword is a constellation Canis Major, where Sirius is located. Cosmic waters flow from her hand to merge the terrestrial waters of the Nile. The bow in her right hand and the arrow in her name is also indicative of the sending of stellar energies. The energy that Satet directs is not only the physical water on which all life in Egypt was dependent on, it's also the energy necessary for spiritual growth, the waters that purify and nurture the spirit. In the temple text, Pepi says, "Behold, Satet washes him with the water which is in her 4 vases of Abu." In the Book of the Dead, the deceased says, "I have been in the waters of the stream, and I have made offerings of incense, and I have been in Abu, in the temple of Satet." Divinatory meaning: purification, the initiation of a new project, and the right time for action, sending one's energies outwards. Your Capricorn. You remember in the last reading we were talking about this hidden path here, which is why I got this deck right here. Okay, we're talking about purification of water and fire. I believe we talked about fire somewhere in here. I don't remember, but water now. Okay, you understand? It's all connected here. So purifying, Capricorn, and you're working on something new. You're creating something new. You're birthing something new here into this world, whether it be an actual person or whatever. Doesn't really matter. But you're now projecting your manifestation out here into reality. Capricorn, I just smacked something. I don't mean to do that, but whatever. Is this one that we found? We found another one here. Okay, it says the Philosopher's Stone, Capricorn. The Hermetic science of alchemy has its origins in Egypt. The word alchemy itself is derived from the Arabic al-Kemet, being a name for ancient Egypt that means black earth. The goal of the great work of the alchemist is the production of the Philosopher's Stone, the mysterious substance that can transmute the base metals into gold, and the ultimate stone of perfection that holds the key to immortality. The sacred science of alchemy was the highest knowledge of Egyptian priesthood, hidden from the outer religion, as medieval alchemists concealed the real nature of their experience from the profane. For alchemy, despite popular belief, was not only concerned with the production of a precious metal, it was, and is, a profound science penetrating the deepest secrets of nature, of life and death, of the beginnings of existence. The process of transmutation, as understood by alchemists, was concerned with both a material and spiritual transmutation of elements. The appearance of gold was to the alchemist the appearance of the sun itself, a symbol of ultimate state of perfection that could be obtained from base metals. Of this stone, the master alchemist Volcano includes these descriptions. It is a stone of great virtue, and is a stone, and is called a stone, but is not a stone, and is mineral, vegetable, and animal, which is found in every place and in every time with every person. There is an occult stone concealed and buried in the depths of a fountain, which is a vile, abject, and valued not at all. It is also covered with filth and excrement, to which all names are given, although there is only really one. The stone, says Morian the Wise, which is not a stone, is animated and having the virtue of procreating and engendering. The great work of alchemy is divided into 3 phases, the 3 degrees of perfection. The first phase is black, which involves finding the raw materials, phase ores, from which the first agent is prepared. The first agent, or materia prima, is enclosed in hermetically sealed philosophic egg and incubated in Athenor for a long period of time. With the egg, the hot solar male principle known as sulfur interacts with the lunar cold female principle known as Mercury. We keep talking about Mercury here, Capricorn. Now I think we're talking about like the science-wise of it, not like the planet. This results in the petrification and decay. The phase of the black phase of death, which finally brings forth the metallic, volatile humidity, which is the mercury of the wise. This mercury, while still in the egg, receives the celestial influences, and eventually the moist substance is purified and sublimated by it. It coagulates and dries, creating beautiful colors, and then the second phase is completed with the appearance of white mercury fixed into the incombustible sulfur. The third phase is the alchemical marriage. The king is reunited with the fire of love, okay, with his blessed queen, just as Cadmus pierced the serpent with his spear. The red sulfur fixes the white mercury, and from their reunion, the ultimate perfection is effected, and the philosopher's stone is born. These three phases, the black, white, and red, are constantly expressed in Egyptian symbolism, from the black land itself, through the white crown of the south, into the red crown of the north, and again in the imagery of Capricorn. Their finest symbol of transmutation. From the black ball of dung, the white larva appears. Eventually they transform into the newborn red and white scarab beetle. In this card is shown the queen from whose womb of the sulfur of the wise emerges. Like Osset, she is seated on a throne, signifying her rulership over the earth. In her right hand she holds the Sekhem scepter, symbol of authority and power. In the open palm of her left hand lies the philosopher's stone, the ultimate substance of material and spiritual transmutation, in the elixir of the gods. Divinatory meaning enlightenment, the distillation of experience, success, and transformation, whether of a spiritual or material nature. After a long and arduous discipline, the goal is accomplished and the work is perfected. The magical body of light. Capricorn, look at this. So there's like something you're transmuting, there's something you're transforming, right? There's enlightenment here, okay? It was successful, right? You successfully brought something, or bringing something here to life here. You projected that forward. That's what you mean. The egg, okay? It's being hatched, Capricorn. Okay, which we do have this egg moon coming up this month, which is quite funny here, Capricorn. Okay, so we have like one more card, I think, which I think is just in this last book, because there's like books in this, which is why you see the same number, but it's in like a different book, even though it's in the same book. I know it's kind of confusing, but it's just the way it is. Why is that one not there? I need to find this last one here, Capricorn. It's number 7. That's not it. So it's in this one. Okay, so we have this one. The Mistress of Horses. Another lion-head and fiery goddess is Asthareth, introduced into Egypt from Syria during the 18th dynasty. Asthareth, also identified also as the goddess of Ishtar and Astarte, was a powerful and popular goddess throughout the Delta, after which she was adopted by the Egyptian people. As a goddess of love and beauty, she had close affinities with Het-Hert, and the rituals in her honor were said to be orgies of love and pleasure. As a goddess of war, she was closely allied with Sekhmet, and her father was identified as either Ra or Ptah. The disseminating fire. Here Astoreth was shown standing on her war chariot and brandishing a whip. She holds control over the 4 horses which symbolize the 4 elements. As a divine horsewoman, she expresses and directs the living creative fire as she wills, trampling over her enemies and the enemies of Ra who stand in her path. As a number of 7, she's a netter of movement and connections, bringing the cosmic fire into the realm of matter. The use of horses in war was adopted by Egyptians from eastern desert dwellers in comparatively late dynastic times, when they learned effectiveness of war chariots in conquering the enemy and expanding their borders. Astoreth, driving into battle with her rampant horses, was a leader and protector of warriors who held her in the highest honor. Divinatory meaning, the conquering of one's enemy, sensual pleasure, exalted to become spiritual joy, travel for one's advantage. Okay, Capricorn, once again, there's like the conquering of one's enemies. There's justice there that's being handled there, Capricorn. Okay, there could be some travels, there's could be some movements here, but once again, like that's what I feel. Okay, once that you've connected to these Egyptian gods here, and then it's like you're birthing something new. There's purifying, you're birthing something new here into the world. Okay, whether this be an actual person, like I said, whatever it is, you're successfully doing that. You're successfully transforming that, Capricorn. There's also a lot of doors being opened up to you, heaven, all these right here. Right. So let us get some runes, some charms for yourself. That was a long reading. So we have Hathor, Virgo, which you could have those placements or one around you there. We have Thoth, which is right over here. We have, yes, we have you birthing it. There's justice once again. That's what's being opened here. Capricorn, so that's all I have for you. Like I said, first link in the description down below for a personal reading. You also go to my Etsy shop, go in there to buy something. Really appreciate that. And if you want to see more content, don't forget to subscribe. Bye, guys.